all, and blessed in the church, you were still pretty special those days. So anyway, it's a happy near Valentine's Day, right? I always look at my GPS, and they always want to know if there's a Walmart or whatever it is I'm looking for near me, right? So Valentine's Day near us. So anyway, if you were holding hands with your sweetheart or your loved one or your better half during the song, raise your hand. How many blessed couples we have in the house today? Blessed couples. Some of you are not raising your hands. Blessed couples. How many are nearly blessed couples? No, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. God bless you, everybody. Let's give our blessed couples a hand. So today we're blessed indeed because we have a special guest with us. He's not a guest. I'm going to learn from True Mother. He's not a guest. He is our family member. I mean, for sure. Reverend Busing is a brother who I have to tell you, when Reverend Busing was appointed the president of the Family Federation USA, I went, yes. I remember there was a couple here. I think it was John and Debbie Sand. When I told them that Reverend Busing was a new president of the United States Church, or the church in the USA, they went, "That's awesome!" like that. And you just have to picture that, right? That's awesome. John's going, "Yeah, that's right." Because they know him, they've seen him. When he was in IW, one of the things that he would do is he would visit couples. And just listen and love on them. And he's so sweet. And I mean that sincerely. Every time I mean, he's just such a dear friend and a good man. And you're gonna see it's a lot of love and a big heart. And I'm really proud of Reverend Busing and his wife Marjorie. Have you met Marjorie? She's just amazing, right? She's so sweet. I mean, when I had a problem at headquarters for any reason at all, I didn't call the president so much. I called Marjorie. Marjorie helped me. And what Marjorie would do, she wouldn't solve my problem. She'd just make me feel better about it. I'm not kidding. It would solve my problem, because I wasn't feeling good about it. And she just made me feel better. And I thought, okay, now I can call Dr. Balcom or something, So anyway, they're just a really wonderful people, and we're really blessed to have them today. Would you please welcome our national president, Reverend Richard Busing.
Good morning, everyone. This microphone is kind of low here. I don't know how you stand up here and talk, John. Reverend Jackson. Okay, it's got a good sound system, I see. It's great being in Texas. I heard everything is big in Texas. Is that true? When I first came to Texas years ago, someone showed me a picture of a jackalope. And they said, "Have you ever seen a jackalope?" I go, "No, do they really exist?" They go, "Yeah, they really exist. But only in Texas." And then also I saw the first time in Texas an armadillo. Yeah. They look like a little tank running around. But Texas is very unique. It's one of the most unique states, and I'm very happy to be here today and to see all of you. Especially thank you, Reverend Jackson, for inviting me and your wife, Fusai. And also Reverend Lee, thank you for joining us today at the service. Also, I'd like to thank Kenny and Linda Holliday for being here today. Let's welcome them as well. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend Linda's birthday. We're actually the same age. We're both now, 39, something like that? Okay. 35, okay. And we're 6 days apart, yes. So we discovered that yesterday. And it was a very wonderful kind of celebration together. So, um, as you know, recently, our true mother, she spoke in Africa in the summit there. I think many of you saw pictures from My Peace TV and other programs. Well, anyway, I just wanted to say a few words about that because that was truly a very historical moment in the history of our movement. Probably no other time like it when she was welcomed as a head of state in Senegal, Africa. And it kind of happened suddenly that the people that made it happen only knew our movement within like 1 year. But they were touched by God. They were touched by True Mother when they went to Korea to meet her. But it really began in 1975 when we sent missionaries to Senegal from America, Japan, and Korea, from those countries. And Germany was the other one, 4 countries. And you know what Reverend Moon told them at the time? You have one goal, to unite with each other, to become one with each other. And by doing that, you will be successful in those countries. Our sister, Kathy Rigney, who went there over 40 years ago, this American sister, she's been working there for all these years. Then all of a sudden, this development took place where she met these key leaders, especially Mansour Diorf, who's a Muslim leader, and Senegal is primarily Muslim. And he came to Madison Square Garden along with another archbishop, a Christian bishop, and they attended Madison Square Garden and they saw True Mother speak there. And then they came to East Garden and they were welcomed there, as Reverend Jackson said, not as guests, but as my family at that time. And then from there they came to the rally in Korea and they spoke. And so then they had this African summit. It was miraculous. If you can imagine her being welcomed as a head of state, flying into the president's private airport, holding this event at their premier conference center, and being welcomed by all kinds of important leaders, heads of state, chiefs, kings, all over Africa. Even Nelson Mandela's grandson, his only grandson, said, I want you to come to South Africa, and so we will welcome you there in the same way to my kingdom. Yeah. And then on top of that, I heard recently that the president of Liberia wants her to come, to go there now and hold a summit. And then I heard on iPeace TV this morning, I watched it, and Dr. Yoon was sharing about it, and he was in tears, saying how all of Africa, so many are welcoming True Mother. Here she is, a Korean woman, but she was married to Reverend Moon. She is still married to Reverend Moon. But together, they accomplished so much, but she is going around the world and being welcomed in such a way. But it began, in 75, Madison Square Garden, the rally from Korea, those African dignitaries. Now she's bringing 40 African representatives to Korea for the upcoming celebration. She's made the headquarters of all of Africa in Senegal. It's quite a change. And one of our pastors from New York, Dr. Abdul Gay, he is now the leader in Senegal, Africa. He graduated from UTS with a Doctor of Divinity. So again, it's just a miracle, but think about it. You know, think about if one nation actually understood that the principle of the universe is to live for the sake of others. That was what was advocated by the president. That was advocated by the Secretary of State. That was advocated by the ambassadors for peace. That those people could go anywhere in the world and they could meet the president of those countries. They could meet everyone because they are a nation. So they're recognized in the world community. That's why True Mother since 2013 has said, we need to secure a nation. That's the value of one nation. So in one sense, we have a nation, don't we? Chunpyong, or Chungwan Complex. If you go there, it's like the kingdom of heaven. You expect everyone in that area is our member. You feel safe there. You feel like it's heaven. There's beautiful shops there. There's coffee shops, better than Starbucks, let me tell you. And our members are working there. You go to the store, there's little grocery stores, there's beauty salons, there's restaurants, there's apartment complexes. And now Mother's brought all of our headquarters in Korea into Chungpyong area, Chungwan. Everything is right there. You know, we expect everybody to be our member. And one of our brothers was eating at Silvertown. You know, that's the retirement home there near Chungpyong. And he found out that this person that was there living there wasn't even our member. He was surprised that someone was actually living there. And he goes, oh, I know about your church a little bit, but I don't really know that much. Anyway, he shared with them about our church and he gave them the blessing. Right there at the Silvertown complex. But that's the environment that we can create. Living in the kingdom of heaven. Mothers wants to create what we call the Hyojung culture. What is it about? It's about this relationship between parents and children. It's this relationship of love that is so profound and so deep that the parents want to be with the children and the children want to be with the parents. If you have children, how do you feel when your children say to you, like, Mom, Dad, don't worry, I will take care of you when you get older? Anyone ever have their children say that? Nothing is more meaningful when your children want to take care of parents. You know, recently my wife was really sick. She got bronchitis and this whole flu thing, and she was in LA. And so I had her, she was supposed to fly back with me, and the doctor said no. She has to wait a few more days. So I flew back to New York. And then my children found out about it. And they found out that she had to stop in Denver on the way and all this. So they said, no, Mom, you can't. Dad should have never left you there like that. So they got her a first class or business class ticket on their own to fly her back. And I was so moved by that because they were thinking of her. So when you have children that want to take care of their parents, that kind of heart. That's why when something happens, like in Korea, for instance, if you looked at the opening ceremony of the Olympics, how many watched that? Anybody watch it? What was your impression? Weren't you wowed? Wasn't it amazing? And all those, what are they, the droids, what do they call them? Drones. And how they harmonized. Think about the computers behind that made that happen. And you know, it's hard to believe that 30 years ago, we actually had the Olympics there in Korea. It's hard to believe it was 30 years ago. But look at how far that's advanced. And then also, too, they are performing at the ski resort Yeongpyeong, which we own in Korea. Isn't it amazing? And the culture and the heart, and I don't know if you watch the NBC commentary, they really express how the beauty of the Korean culture is. And even the older people that were respected and honored. You know, and then the young. There was this feeling of family there that was very profound. That's what Mother wants to create in a heavenly culture, a heavenly world, where we want to make our parents happy. You know, that's our desire, to make our parents happy. That's why when we read Father's words, you know, in the Chung, this is one of Father's speeches here. It's called Gateway to Heaven. And Father talks about family. So if you can love the people of the whole world as much as you love your family, as much as you love God with your family at the center, then this will become a straight road leading to the kingdom of heaven. This is why the first commandment is, you shall love God with your whole heart and with all your soul and all your mind. And then he says, the second is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. If you love God and love humanity, everything will be realized. No matter how great a religious person's spiritual discipline may be, that person will be unsuccessful if he or she does not know how to love God, humankind, and the universe. And then he goes on to say, if you love your parents and your children more than you do your spouse, if you love all humanity, even God, more than you do your spouse, everything will be realized. People don't like hearing that. But then he says, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't love your spouse. Do you know what I mean? Because actually, when you're loving God and humanity, you and your wife shares that with you, you have this kind of relationship of love that is very special. Because God's love is drawn to you because both of your minds and hearts are thinking in the realm of God's heart and realm. That's what's powerful. That's what's really powerful in your life. And not only that, when people see that you not only love God, but you love each other as husband and wife, your children see that whether you realize it or not. They see it through the examples that you live. So, regardless of how your children view your faith, one thing is, they learn so much by your example. How much you truly love not only each other, but love others. So true mother always says, love 7.5 billion people. How do you get a handle on that? But when you think about it, it begins again with your family. It begins with an expanding that to our tribe, to our, clan, whatever. We expand it in that way. So, if you truly love as God loves, then you begin to have the mind of God like that. Your mind gets bigger and bigger. So you begin to think like that. And you have that kind of heart and love toward other people. So if you read this speech, Gateway to Heaven, it's one of the Pyeongwang in the Pyeongwang. It talks about parents, grandparents, past, present, and future. How many have seen these small books there? Have anyone got one yet? These are the new tradition books, the new holy books, the Holy Scriptures, 3 of them. They're like the size of a Bible. They're very convenient. I think Reverend Jackson's going to have some here. 2 cases of them. But you have to get this because these are very kind of special kind of books. So one thing I wanted to emphasize is this Hyojung culture between parents and children. That's what makes life meaningful. That's why the family becomes the school of love. It becomes the building block. So that you develop that in several generations, that it continues to reaffirm itself. And it's not just us, but it's also our spiritual side as well. So that when you have grandparents that you love or parents that you love, do you think that they ever leave loving you? Even though they pass on, they never leave you. I think, Dr. Holliday, you had one of your grandchildren there yesterday, and your grandchild came up and blew out the candles on the cake. And everybody was so happy to see the grandchild. She will never quit loving that grandchild. She'll love that grandchild as much as she loves her own children, if not more. So when she dies and goes to the spiritual realm, do you think her love will stop for that child? Do you think she won't want to be around that child? That's why everything we do is connected to this spiritual side of our life. And because of that, we can know that we are helping them and they are helping us. Because of this power that love draws people together. So we have to feel we are never, ever alone. That we have spiritual power. Recently, I was praying I never did this before. I was praying to my grandparents on my father's side. And I said, you have to talk to my cousin. You have to influence her to do something good. Like this. I go, this is my prayer one morning. And then 2 hours later, I got this call from her, and I hadn't heard from her in 3 months. And I was so surprised. And I said, it's amazing you called. Because, she's very Catholic. And so in the Catholic Church, part of the prayers, you pray for the souls of the faithfully departed. That's part of the morning Mass. So I said I was praying for our grandparents, and and she said, wow, that's good. I'm glad I called you. But it was kind of a miracle. And then she said, well, I was only trying to save on a Christmas card. But I said, but you called me. That was the important thing. Because I hadn't heard from her in months. So you never know how God works in our life. So the testimony is we should have those kinds of experiences every day in our life. That's what church should be about. So one thing that I wanted to share with you, three things. First one is we need to know God. But not just know God, as True Mother says, we need to attend God in our life. Attending God means living our daily life with God, our Heavenly Parent. That we have to have the mind that when we talk, when we walk, when we go anywhere, whether we're doing business, whether we're doing arts, whether we're doing education, whether we're doing sports, we have the feeling that my life is not just my life, that I have a partnership with my Heavenly Parent, that love that we talk about is that love that's always with us wherever we go, whatever we do. That kind of heart and spirit. So if we understand that, I always think that we need to know God. That's why we need to understand also God's Word. So one of the Bible quotes that I always like is the one on the parable of the sower. I think you all know that, where the sower goes out and sows the seeds. Some are, dried up. Some are swallowed by weed. All these kind of things. The final one is planted in fertile soil. But Jesus explains that parable. And I want you to think about it because in many ways it applies to our lives. So the first thing Jesus says, when anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in his heart. This is what was sown along the path. So someone hears the word and gets a glimpse of the value of the word. And then someone right away comes along and says, we've heard that stuff before, or it's not really relevant to this time. And then the other one says, as for what was sown on rocky ground, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures for a while. And when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, immediately he falls away. So how many of us have had that experience? Or others that we know? They get persecuted, they go through tribulation, something happens, then all of a sudden God doesn't exist. The word no longer has its power that holds us. That's the other thing. And then he goes on to say, as far as what was sown among thorns, this is one who hears the word. But the cares of the word and the delight in riches choke the word and prove it unfruitful. Again, the temptations of the world. A lot of us live very austere, what's the word? Aesthetic lives, where we had nothing. So all of a sudden, we have the freedom and we get very successful in whatever we're doing. Then all of a sudden, that becomes our world. So that becomes a priority in our life. But we know that that's not what the priority of life is. So even wealth or riches or something that is really not just ours, it's the blessing given to us by God. You know, recently I called this one brother who always gives money for holidays, True Parents' birthday. And I called him up and I said, I'm just calling, would you like to make a special offering for True Parents' birthday? And he said, okay, yeah, I can do that. So he said, I'll give $10,000. And I said, wow. Like that. I go, wow. First time I ever called this brother. I know him, but I never ever asked him for this. And then he sent me a text about an hour later. He goes, you know what? I'm going to send 21,000 because I want 7,000 for the birthday, for Heavenly Parents' Day, and Foundation Day. That was his heart. And so I called him and I said, thank you so much. And he said, well, thank you for asking me. His attitude was, and this brother is so blessed, he gives so much money to certain things. But that's how he sees everything in his life. He gives in that way. Very successful brother. So when we understand that, then we see the purpose of business. And as for what was sown on good soil, he hears the word and understands that it multiplies many, many more. So one of the things that we forget is we need to understand God. That's first in our life. The first thing is understand and attend God. That's why we are living. That is the Hyojung culture. That is being a filial child. That if we know God, then we can't help but want to do what God would want us to do. If we say we know God, but have nothing to do with God, then do we really understand God, and are we really attending God in our life? And the other part of that is not only do we need to attend and know God, but also we need to attend and understand true parents. Because where does our understanding of God come from? It comes from the words, the truth, the principle of human life. And by doing that, when we understand true parents, everything becomes so clear in our life. Without knowing true parents, you ever stop and think what the ideal world would have been like if Adam and Eve had not fallen? We've never lived in an ideal world, but think about it. Adam and Eve were to be the first ancestors of humankind. As the divine principle says, they were to be the substantiation of God in the flesh. God could live within them, dwell within them. They would have become the first ancestors or the true parents of heaven and earth. And also we understand that before they fell, they were spiritually aware. So it says they could communicate with the angelic world. How can you communicate with the angelic world unless your spiritual senses were open? So you got to think that in the ideal world, that spiritually we can be open to the spiritual world if the spirit world was clearly the realm of the kingdom of heaven. So that when our ancestors died and went to the spirit world, what would they be? They would be the substantiation of God in the flesh. That's why when you read all of Father's words, it always says, God has no form in the spirit world. You won't see God in the spirit world. Do you ever read that point? Yeah. If you read it, then you'll understand that because Adam and Eve were to be the first parents, everything, they would always be the vertical parents of humankind. That everybody else could experience the love of family and children, but they would always be that substantiation. That's why when we pray, we say, the parents of heaven and earth and humankind. All those proclamations that true parents made have to do with the realization, the value and importance of true parents in the historical context of human history. Then there's no confusion. Do you know what I mean? There's only one set of true parents. So that's why True Mother is proclaiming, you can't have the only begotten Son without the only begotten daughter. One cannot be without the other, if you understand that point. Because there's only one set of true parents, historically, from the history of restoration and the history of the providence. So finally, we need to understand God, we need to understand true parents, and finally, we need to understand the purpose of our life. So what is our purpose? You all know. Fulfill the ideal of creation. That's why when we do the family pledge, what do we say? What are the first words of the family pledge? Our family, the owner of Cheonggyeoguk. The owner of Cheonggyeoguk. And at the very end, you say, centered on what? True love. True love. So ultimately, everything comes down to us, to me. That is the beauty. We create the kingdom of heaven. We create the kingdom of heaven in our hearts or in our minds. So I always say, if I died right now on this stage, okay, I fell over, my body's laying there, and I'm standing here in my spirit, and I'm looking down at my body, you know, like an out-of-the-body experience. Even though my body's laying there, my thoughts are the same. Whatever I'm thinking, it is who I am. I can't change who I am. That's why this life is most important. This internal life is more important than anything in the whole world. And we have to nurture and feed this internal life every single day. Why do you think Muslims have 5 times bowing every day? You know, these religious traditions, always they're trying to focus on their spiritual side of their life. So we need to feed our spirit. That's why if you read just 1 page or 2 pages of Father's words and true parents' words, and you carry them with you out the day, and you repeat them sometime during the day, and you reflect on what you read, that can give you power to change. Because we have to be constantly growing and changing. We can't be like we were yesterday. We have to, sometimes, you know, Mike McDivitt was telling us that at East Garden, Mother would change the room just so it'd be differently, so people would sit in a different place. Just to be different, to have a different feeling. So when we change, you know, when we actually make effort, then something good can happen in our life every single day. So sometimes it might be just getting up early at 4 a.m. and taking a walk. Go out and do something different that you don't do the same thing every day. And do it thinking about, I want to be different tomorrow than I am today. That kind of heart and spirit. And keep growing our spirit within us. So that a victory of anyone is a victory for all of us. Do you understand? So we should rejoice in others' victories. We should be happy that someone has the most beautiful family in the world. If someone has great children and a great marriage and a great family, then I'd like to understand, well, what did you do? How did you live your life that you have this beautiful family? So we learn from each other, because in the end, one victory is a victory for all victories. So when Mother got the victory in Africa, how did we all feel? Did you feel it was your victory? Yes. Were you proud of True Mother? Yes. I was so proud. I was proud of Korea, the opening ceremony. I was really proud. Because Korea's my homeland too. Why is it my homeland? Because my parents were born there. You know, I want my parents to live in their homeland and be the parents of that homeland. That's why we need to please our parents. We need to make them, we need to have something to share with them. That's why my life, by loving them, I'm loving God. By loving Jesus, who was one with God, I'm loving God. You don't separate Jesus from God. That's why Jesus said, you see me, you see the Father. So when we see the mind and heart of true parents, then we see the heavenly heart of God. And that's why I can live each and every day, brothers and sisters. So I want to leave you with 3 points. Attend God, know God, understand God, that point, and then love true parents with your whole heart and mind, soul, like you love others, and then know who you are and know your purpose. And then life has more meaning than you can possibly imagine. Thank you, everyone. Let us pray, everyone. Our loving Heavenly Parent, our beloved true parents, our life is really tied in every way to you. Everything in this world, this environment, was created out of your love for your children. You prepared this environment in this world, this earth, to be the place where your children could be born and live in love and go into the eternal spiritual world in love. It was never meant to be the kind of world that we live in. You never wanted to see the incredible suffering. You only wanted to live in a world with your children, as any parent would want to live with their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. That is the world that you want, Heavenly Parent. It was never realized. Even Jesus himself went through so much difficulty. When we read the Bible, his story of where he says the bird has a nest, the fox has a hole, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. His life was not easy. He was misunderstood and rejected, but he loved unconditionally. Even on the cross he prayed, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. Even our true Father's life, he prayed for those who persecuted him. He reached out to even the prison guards who tortured him in prison and protected their lives after the Japanese government fell in Korea. He was always thinking how he could save not only his own people, but he went to the world. Our true parents went to the world for the sake of all humankind. Heavenly Parent, let us realize that our lives are tied to you. And as long as they are tied to you, as long as we say you are our Heavenly Parent, we cannot ever leave you, and we cannot forget you. I pray today that we can all become better people, citizens of Cheongil-guk, through our life and through our practice. Thank you so much. I want to offer this and report this in the name of Richard and Marjorie Busing of Blessed Central Family. Adieu.